everyone. I'll be presenting on congenital ichthyosis, less is more. No financial disclosure. 8-month-old child who was a product of consanguineous marriage, a known case of congenital ichthyosis, was referred for nocturnal lag of thalamus and surgical correction of ectropion. Child was already on treatment with lubricants. On ocular examination, there was thick fissured plaques, madarosis, absent lid crease, dry and scaly lids, bilateral upper and lower lid cicatricial ectropion, broad nasal bridge, matted eyelash, punctal eversion, and a clear cornea. On systemic examination, there was hyperkeratotic bands leading to joint contracture, along with dystrophic nails and seborrheic dermatitis. Further examination revealed scarring alopecia, eclabium, and diffuse thick desquamating plaques over the entire surface of the body. So based on history and clinical manifestation, a diagnosis of lamellar ichthyosis was made. Ichthyosis are a heterogeneous group of disorders which are characterized by abnormal hyperkeratinization, subsequent scaling, loss of normal skin integrity. There are 4 different types: ichthyosis vulgaris, X-linked ichthyosis, lamellar ichthyosis, and bullous ichthyosis. The lamellar and the bullous ichthyosis, although are rare, are present at birth. The bullous ichthyosis, they have intense blistering at birth, whereas lamellar ichthyosis, they have a collodion baby and an ectropion. The other 2 conditions, although are common, but they present in early childhood. Other ocular manifestations are cicatricial entropion, trichiasis, exposure keratopathy, lag of thalamus, and the following. The main enzyme responsible for lamellar ichthyosis is transglutaminase 1. Now, this enzyme helps in maintenance of epidermal lipid barrier and cohesiveness of the stratum corneum. Whenever there is a mutation, it can lead to hyperkeratosis leading to joint contracture, anterior lamellar contraction leading to ectropion, increase in the transepidermal water loss leading to dryness, and loss of barrier function leading to skin infection. There are 2 different schools of thought for the management, the medical and the surgical. But whatever schools of thought we take, the primary aim of the treatment is to prevent the secondary bacterial infection, to prevent the corneal scarring, to correct the ectropion, and to eliminate the scaling. The surgical modalities can be divided into 2 parts, the temporary and the permanent. The temporary measures are relaxing incision with suture tarsorrhaphy, inverting sutures, and the fillers. The permanent methods are skin graft, mucous membrane graft, and cheek transposition flap. But the complications associated with them are they can lead to contraction of the graft, recurrence, and hyperpigmentation. There are 3 principles for the medical management: hydration, lubrication, and keratolysis. The hydration and the lubrication are taken care by the moisturizing agents. The lubrication and the keratolysis are taken care by the topical retinoids, and the keratolysis per se is taken care by the systemic retinoids. Now, the systemic retinoids, they facilitate the shedding of the scales. So what happens that the anterior lamellar contraction is released and hence decreases the tendency for the ectropion to progress. Secondly, it also prevents the excessive hyperkeratosis and also helps in collagen synthesis, thus help in maintaining the normal elasticity of the skin. So our plan of management was conservative treatment followed by close observation and then surgical intervention if needed. The treatment protocol which we followed included all the 3 elements. Our first step was to hydrate the skin by using optimized hydration and lubrication. We mixed the petroleum jelly and the Moisturex so that there is no minimal evaporation. The ratio was based on the thickness of the scales. This was followed by cocoonization of the baby. The child was also started on oral retinoids, acitretin, at a dose of 10 mg once daily, along with topical retinoic acid, tretinoin 0.05%, and copious lubrication. 6 weeks later, our child was recovering well and doing better in terms of skin texture and ectropion, movement of the joint, and scarring alopecia. The side effects associated with the systemic retinoids are mucocutaneous disorders, teratogenicity, developmental delay, abnormal lipid profile, and osteoporosis. At 2.5 years of follow-up, our child has developed no systemic complication and both physical and mental developmental milestones are normal. There is complete resolution of ectropion, no punctal eversion, lid crease has formed. The skin texture and the quality is better. There is near resolution of scarring alopecia and the child has near normal appearance. On follow-up, few things has to be kept in mind. Number one, the liver function test and the lipid profile test should be done before the treatment and at 1 month and 3 months following the treatment. The growth and the bone development should always be monitored. The children should be advised and the parents should be told that to avoid any strenuous activity in the high temperature. And if there is a fertile woman, then contraceptive should be maintained. So to conclude, the monitored medical management with understanding of the disease process can result in significant and sustained improvement with the correction of ectropion without the need of surgery and to avoid any surgical complication. Treatment should be individually optimized. This is another patient who was on a long-term follow-up. This child presented to us as a tarsal ectropion and exposure keratopathy. We couldn't get her pictures, but with the suture tarsography, and currently she is on after 16 years of follow-up, she is attending her school and doing very well. That's all from my side. Thank you for listening.